Boom, it says go. I get a countdown on this thing, Blake. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're seeing me in this spot, it means my new computer is yet to arrive. So I thought, they told me 10 days. I'm like the little kid that can't wait for Christmas. It turns out it's like 10 business days. So this is day 9 of business, day 9 out of 10. Could be done today. The little shop it's at has a pretty good record of doing a turnaround. I asked AI, because I can't wait. Hey, AI, what are the odds? It goes, you got about a 60% chance of it being ready to pick up today. So I go, that's pretty good. So maybe, towards the end of the day, they'll give me a call and I can go pick it up. I got another live stream music oriented with the vinyl community, the other thing I do. But this is a lot of fun. This show with Blake is so much fun. There's so much going on. Right now, Canada is in the absolute fuck around phase. So we're still fucking around. We haven't found out yet. We're finding a little bit out. 10% tariff across the board, apparently, on everything. And but now we've got the premier again for our American friends. This is like a governor, the head of the province here where we live, British Columbia. This idiot, he says, I'm going to do an attack ad too. I can do attack ads too. So Mr. Wiggum Jr. is going to be launching some attack ads on Trump. Soon as Trump sees those ads, I suspect that Trump's going to turn around, spank Canada hard. It's like, it's like we keep hitting the America goes, stop, quit hitting me. You're annoying. I hate you, bunk. America goes, what are you doing? You keep doing that, I'm going to hit you. Bunk. And eventually America just turns around and cuts us, and it's game over. We're going to get blown out, big time. Blake, talk to me. Tariffs, the Supreme Court, tariffs, Canada, what happened with Ford, and Carney apparently knew about this goofy ad, the Reagan ad, that is out of context. Anybody who knows anything knows it's out of context. Before I turn over, Blake, big announcement. I have already turned my default homepage into Grokpedia. Grokpedia is officially launched 1.0 or 0.1 or something. It's a very early iteration of it, very primitive right now. Elon says it's still better than Wikipedia. Wikipedia is horrible. They're always asking for money like leftists do. You get in there and you get all this nonsense.
Yeah.
Anyway, Blake, take it away. These advertisements right during the World Series, well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the ultimate in stupidity. I really do believe that, but I just kind of wonder if the logic within the Carney administration of the really, it's the Trudeau administration. It's the same faces. He hasn't changed anything.
Yeah.
It's just he's the only face that changed. It's all the same characters, the same cast of dummies, little Keystone cops running around trying to pretend they're running a country, and they think they're bigger than they really are. And I think this is seriously the big issue we have in Canada, is that we're run by a bunch of bureaucratic buffoons, and they thought, Doug Ford's, he's one of the gang, he's one of the Laurentian elite group. And of course, when I say Laurentian elite, this is the group of the establishment version of, for the US, you have your establishment, we have our establishment in Canada. They're the ones that have full control of our financial levers through industry, through market supply management monopolies. They're highly integrated within our retirement savings plans with public pension funds, private pension funds, union pension funds, the asset manager class. It's that side of Canada that loves to have these market monopolies and control. And I think they thought with their buddies with the Democrats for the last 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 years, especially with the Liberals, but it just seems like it intensified from 2016 onwards, that they were literally campaigning with the Democrats, and they thought that they could, try and help bet all their chips on one side, which was absolutely stupid in any country to do that. So here they are acting as really a proxy. We talked about it off screen that there's been some alleged comments that Canada's acting as a proxy to antagonize Trump from Great Britain. But no, I think it's not just Great Britain. It is the Democrat Party is highly integrated into the Liberal Party of Canada. They have supported each other. The Liberals campaigned against Trump, and they did. They were very public about it. And they've had leading Democrat leaders come to Canada and give lectures, and they've hired them to come and help them on their campaigns and vice versa. So really, this is a North America party that's a progressive nightmare that we've been under, is cross-border. They're entrenched in Canada. And sadly, our conservative governments, some of them are fully captured by them. And this is like the Doug Ford government in Ontario. They're one and the same. I don't see any difference between them and the Liberals of Canada now. So they decide to go ahead and run a campaign ad when Carney himself was saying a deal was imminent for the last couple weeks. They've been working on it with Trump in good faith. In good faith. And that's the part that's important. They are out there talking and negotiating this deal. Then all of a sudden, during the World Series, they plan to run these ads with the Blue Jays down in the States and a number of other networks. CNN, there was a bunch of them, including Fox News. Even there was $75 million budget. And then Trump gets mad for what he felt was basically they were trying to influence the Supreme Court. Let's call it for what it is. They thought the ads were there to try and influence the court case about the tariffs that were currently going on. It wasn't about anything else. People are trying to say it's his ego. No, it's not ego. It's like, you pissed me off. You were negotiating in the room with me. We shake hands. We're going to work things out. We don't go and try and slam each other and work with our Democratic allies, because that's what he's doing. Ford was working against Trump and the Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, to try and sway, as he said, their opinions. But Trump saw that as he was trying to used his media influence to try and sway the Supreme Court and their decision to create public pressure that the courts would change. But then that got stopped, as we said on Friday. It looked like Carney had stepped in and asked Ford to pause the ads to make it look like, hey, I'm the good guy, good cop, bad cop, I think is what they were trying to play on Trump. But I don't think Trump bought it. He saw the bullshit because it came out over the weekend that Carney was fully aware of these ads before Ford launched them. They had a meeting about it. Yeah. So this was an attempt to manipulate a trade discussion while it was being done in good faith. Something must have been said between Ford and Carney. That's all the thing I understand is something must have been said. Like, we're going to have to give up a few things. The sacred cows of Canada, right? There is some sacred cows in Canada that the Laurentian elite don't want to let go of. The supply management, and believe me, you go on X right now and you start saying, get rid of supply management, get the deal done. They're all over you like hornets right now. You are the worst, because that's exactly what this is about. It's about maintaining those monopolies, maintaining that control. So what does Carney do? Right after Trump announces, he says, in the media, they're saying that there's a big deal with China. Like, big deal. Just a few days later, boom, hey, all the tariffs and trade, we're going to do a massive deal with China. Why would he do that? China, when this is the guy, Carney, in the last election, when he was asked point blank, who is the biggest geopolitical threat to Canada right now for foreign influence and all that, and he said China. He didn't say Trump. He didn't say Russia. He said China. And I thought that was fascinating when he said it at that time, because that's what Trump sees as the biggest threat to the United States is China.
Yeah.
So here we have comes out this past weekend and says it's this big deal and that it all breaks, that he knew about the deal with Ford well before, and Ford threw him under the bus in a panic because he's now facing the ire of people not only in Canada, but he's got Trump, he's got MAGA, he's got everybody hammering him. He's a clown. He's become a complete clown show. And believe me, the Dems in the US and the Liberals will hang him out to dry. He will be left. Some people think he's trying to run to depose Pierre Poilievre, but who cares about that right now? But the point is, and you can guarantee Trump's just going to say, yeah, you want a backdoor and try and use me, try and leverage with China and me. You know what that phone call Trump's going to have. That phone's going to pick up to Xi and says, you do a deal with Carney like this, I'm slapping 40% tariffs on everything. I'm slapping 100% tariffs on everything from China. And do you think Xi's going to back Carney, his buddy? I doubt it. The United States is still very much a huge customer for China. And they're joined at the hip, even though they're the world's greatest geopolitical threat to each other, is the way they would view it. So it's fascinating what we're watching here, that Carney would allow this to happen, which says to me, I'm wondering, goes back to theory one when we first started this show, that Carney needs to save face to bring Canada into an economic union in the United States. Something has to give to force, so he doesn't look like it and the Liberals don't look like it, that they brought Canada into an economic Fortress North America Union. Ford keeps saying it. He wants Fortress Can-Am or AmCan, he calls it. He starts going on the media about that. That's everything we've been talking about, except old Ford knows you're not going to be able to keep your market monopolies and your manipulation of the Canadian people and keeping them under the ires of just being hewers of wood and drawers of water for the old Hudson's Bay Company class of market monopolists. That would have to leave. It would be the U.S. currency. It would be a unified currency system, unified military system, unified market. And that is, if anything's going to happen, Carney's going to have to show to the Canadian people we had no choice. Like, and now he's been left. And so, but he's boxed into nowhere. Where are you going to go, buddy? Where you have done? Xi's going to use you. Trump can block you out. You're blocked out. What are you going to get? You think China is going to go, here, we'll give you a pile of money. You're going to say, you have no customers now but us. So we're going to offer you at 50, 75% less than what we would have paid when you were competing with us in the United States. Are you guys morons?
Yeah, so there's a deal brewing that potentially that Canada and China will, Canada says, we're going to take all the tariffs off the import of Chinese electric vehicles.
Yeah.
What do you think Trump's going to respond to that with? If that goes down?
Well, and it's not it'll be tariff city beyond you can possibly imagine, but the national security threat of our systems are these Chinese vehicles have Chinese software, and it's no different than your listening devices that you have with your smartphones, except it's going to be owned and run by China. We already told China we can't use your cell phones that you were building because they've become a security risk to the people that are holding it.
Yeah, that was the Huawei.
Huawei. Yeah, well, it's the
Huawei's. Yeah.
Yeah, people said they had superior camera, but that was the hook. Get the high camera capabilities, but they build any kind of equipment you can buy that's integrated into these software systems that communicate over the internet. You are now just part of the national security threat. You become a national security threat by using their equipment. So yeah, Trump will shut that down faster than you can blink if that happens.
So Trump's already started to lean on us a very little bit. He's started laying a finger's pressure on us. You know what I'm saying? What if America decides to roll over on top of Canada economically? How much more are we going to push this guy, antagonize him? You got Eby with his little red flag, Trump the ball. Hey, look what we're going to do. I'm doing an attack ad on Canada. Yeah. How fucking stupid can you be? And Canada seems to be emboldened by the fact that there's Chinese money going into people's coffers. I think that's part of it as well. We know already that China's infiltrated Canada. We know the World Economic, Forum they were bragging about the fact that Canada's in their pocket. All their leadership is basically the young world leaders of tomorrow. It's corrupt as hell, but this whole rotten, stinking mess. It has, there's got to be some sort of reconciling with it all. A reckoning is what's required.
Well, we're either going to salvage what's left of our Western classical liberal society and liberal rights on that side. I'm not talking about Americans who might be listening. We're not talking about liberals as socialist, progressive, hellhole liberals. Those aren't liberals. I'm talking about classical liberals, where our foundations of our rights-based societies were developed from, which was called classical liberal. It's our economic policies were classical liberal. The individual rights and freedoms to be able to buy, sell, and trade whoever you want, when you want, without government, and pray who to you want and believe what you want, as long as you're not imposing force onto others. That is essentially what those rights were to this new era of this globalist cabal that wanted to take over everything, run it through a Chinese social credit system. China was the model they wanted to bring to the earth. And that's what we're still up against. They haven't given up. The mission is still there. Spectre is still running in the background. We got to go get that guy who's got get the cat on that guy's lap and get them both right. Boom. Maybe one of those Venezuelan gunships could come and we could go take him out. Maybe he's on a boat somewhere else.
It's pretty FUBAR, right? Fucked up beyond all reason. Okay, didn't Mark Carney vow to enforce arrest warrants for Netanyahu? Well, this is coming out of the World Court, a World Court that the United States of America has already rejected its assumed authority. America says no to this whole idea that you're going to have some sort of international court superseding national laws. And we already saw that with the land claims. We played a clip last show where his native lady saying, I represent the UN. They've already come down with a mandate, and our international law trumps, pardon the pun, your Canadian law. So suck it up, buttercups. Very interesting. I've got a great clip. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's a long clip, but I want to expose you all to it. And just to comment alone, for Promethean Action, Blake and I were talking about this before the show. Breaking, Trump just ignored Canada's Carney at the Asian Summit, the ASEAN Summit. While close to securing a massive China trade deal instead, Susan Kokinda exposes how Britain is using Canada as a Trojan horse to sabotage Trump's sovereignty revolution. And it's happening with Japan, with the president met with Japan, making national decisions, national trade agreements that are bypassing the big international trade system. So it's remarkable to see what this president is doing. But I'm going to go play this this clip. Sorry, bring it back here. And we'll play just a little bit to give you a sense of what this lady's saying.
Donald Trump is in Asia, and while the headlines want to keep you focused on the China threat, the real threat to Donald Trump's agenda is not coming from the president of China. It's coming from the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who went to the ASEAN summit in Malaysia to defend globalization and try and sabotage Trump's economic revolution. But if you read the press, it's all about China. But contrary to those headlines and constant warnings of trade war and confrontation with China, the United States and China announced substantial progress yesterday. Treasury Secretary Bessent and his Chinese counterpart finalized a preliminary trade framework in advance of the Trump-Xi summit later this week. By contrast, Trump suspended all trade talks with Canada right before he left for Asia. And on Air Force One last night, President Trump said that Canada has been one of the most difficult countries to deal with. And when asked if he would meet with Prime Minister Carney at the APEC summit, said,
Canada has been ripping us off for a long time. Why? One of the most difficult countries to deal with has been Canada. As much as I love Canada itself and the people of Canada, they've just had a lot of bad representatives. They did a fake ad yesterday. They were caught.
Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC? Do you want to meet with him? Will you see him in APEC
I don't want to meet with them. No, I'm not going to be meeting with them for a while. No, I'm very happy with the deal we have right now with Canada. We're going to let it ride.
I'm Susan Kokinda, and I've been in this fight since the 19.
All right. So this lady does a great job. And what I'm going to do is just leave a link to that full video. It's a 14-minute video with a lot of detail. But Blake, just in that short snippet, she reiterates, or what Trump was reiterating, that it's the Trudeau people that Canada's hard to deal with because, as you said, Trump's people are still engaging with the idiots from the holdovers, the leftovers from Trudeau's trade team. And Trump hated those people. Nothing was getting done through them. Nothing again. Trump is extremely patient. Trump has got all the cards. He's always got all the hard cards. The Dems are freaking out because of, I'm busy building a ballroom while the lockout's going on, which is seen largely as the Democrats' responsibility, the Democrats' fault. Trump's in no hurry. He's dismantling more and more Democrat entrenched government agencies the longer this thing goes on. So he's got a long field to play with. He's got a lot of options. This is like 1st and 10 for Trump. He could throw, he could run it. There's a number of things Trump could, play on this, to use that football allegory. There's a lot of options. He go wide, he can throw short, he can try a Hail Mary, whatever the hell he wants to do. It's all there.
Well, and he was able to see their play in his first term, right? He was like, you watched a World Series, since we're in the World Series right now, game. Yeah. That literally, game 1, you let them, maybe even game 2, let them throw all their plays at you, and then once you learn all their plays, and you go and you crush them, right? And I think that's term 2 is basically the back end of the series, where now he's winning, and he's just going to keep winning because he knows there's nothing they can do that will surprise him. He knows all their moves. He can see their moves because he has a good group of people around him that know those moves and have been preaching against those people for a long time and are finally have a voice. And that's the rise of MAGA, real MAGA people that believe to fight those people. But I agree. I think what's happening in Carney is he's a WEF general. This guy was one of the top brass on the entire board. He was like a right-hand man to Klaus Schwab, and those guys who run it are the and I'm going to say it over and over again. It's the large multinational multi-trillion dollar asset management companies that run the WF, which means also are basically tied to the central banking core groups as well. But those guys are running it all because they're buying everything up. You'll own nothing and be happy. The asset managers are the ones that have that power to do that. The institutional investment companies like them, they're taking trillions of dollars of union pension funds, public pension funds, private pension funds, and buying every company on earth. And Trump knows that. Trump is breaking the back of that monopoly. And I see that in Canada. And Canada, why is Canada the hardest? Because Canada wants a one-way trade deal. They don't want true free trade. They're just saying, no, we want to maintain our supply management. We want to have free trade with you so Americans can get richer, but we don't want our Canadians to get richer because that means if more and more Canadians get wealthy and get ahead, you know what that means? We no longer can control a monopoly in Canada because too many people are being successful. It's champagne socialism. But that was happening around the world, and Trump saw that. China was doing the same thing. Japan was doing the same thing. And that whole video with Reagan, they don't even talk about the precursor conversation Reagan had to that. That's a legitimate thing. Yeah, Reagan is against tariffs because it's a tax on his own people. But he was saying before that, it was during that era, Japan was tariffing U.S. products and services while getting a free deal the other direction. So Reagan did state that tariffs are a good tool to bring other countries into compliance into a free trade agreement, a true free trade, where you both equally are sharing equally straight
Well,
across
yeah,
the board.
and at the time, the big push was free trade, and it never worked out the way the little people thought. Like me, oh, I'll buy a book for the same price as my American counterparts. It's free trade, no taxes, no. We're going to trade stuff. It'll flow back and forth across the border without duties and charges and surcharges.
Yeah.
It never materialized that way. All it did was it made it great for the big companies to go, now I can build my factory in Mexico. I don't have to pay outrageous Canadian
exactly.
wages.
Well, the spider web of all of these massive trillions and trillions into the asset management companies for the pension fund connection is the biggest reason why we're into this. These guys don't want free trade. They don't want it. They want to be able to move what they want to move without competition. If you don't have competition, you can charge whatever you want. That is the Canadian system. Why do Canadians, they're all elbows up apparently when they're not, really. This is what the media is telling us. But they're willing to spend 3-4 times what everywhere else in the world pays for, say, cellular phone connections, right? We get ripped off there. We get ripped off on all things connected to dairy. We get ripped off on all things connected to produce being brought in. We get ripped off on, we have a monopoly on grocery distribution. We have monopoly. This is their vision of the world, that there's this massive octopus of an economic system that all owns each other, so that there's no longer a competition. The true free world was about basically you're in a free market capitalist world where everybody competes with the same rules, same opportunities. They don't get legislative protections over another company or another industry, and that's what Canada represents. Why is Trump saying Canada is the toughest and the hardest? Is because we're entrenched with that retardation of economic policy, that it's good to have monopolies. It's good to have controls on the entire economy and not allowing the free market, free enterprise to be able to compete, to the point we could go into other stories. Now they want to strip us of our private property in Canada under First Nations Indigenous land claims. So they're using the Indigenous people as a catalyst to strip property ownership. So you'll own nothing. There's no competition in property anymore. Everybody becomes part of this negotiated class where everybody's in a little deal, you get a little piece of this, little piece of that, but it's all run by them. It's all run by them. And I see why Trump needs to break it, because these guys, that's their vision of the world. It is the Chinese system. China's embraced it. China's taken on it. China's moved faster because they're a dictator, because our prime minister, our former prime minister, said he loved, essentially, he really
he admired how they could get
he admired the Chinese dictatorship, or what he said, basic dictatorship, because they don't have the democracy. Like, they don't.
Yeah, the voice of the people don't have to be considered.
So that's the enemy that we're up against right now. And yet the propaganda machine is working full tilt because they have all the money here. Yeah. They control the levers of money. They control the tax.
But they're still dying. I've reiterated, you've reiterated on this very program, that because the social media X being bought by Elon Musk is a huge game changer. The legacy media is dying. Nobody listens to them. No, I mean, the liberals listen to it, but they're the minority. They lied that they're the majority, but the election was won. Trump won the election, and it looks like the midterms are going to look very good for the Republicans right now. The Republican Party is doing very good, and as we just saw from Down and Out, Trump's the only president in history to actually rise in the polls during a government shutdown. Trump's not seen as the villain in that drama by the vast majority of people. But what's it going to take for Trump to start really laying into Canada and really start pressuring us? Blake, I was down at Costco. There was a side of beef, roughly about, a foot and a half long at steak. It was like $239, if not more, dollars. $239 for a slab of beef. Sue was telling me that hamburger, she was down at the store. Hamburger used to be kind of the cheap, everybody, let's get a, pound of hamburger. That'll cost us $5. That's going for like $35 up here. for hamburger, lean ground beef. Ridiculous. So, no more meat. It's bad for the planet. Eat the bugs. That's what's good for you. How much,
Exactly.
It's just absolutely crazy. One last thought on this before I turn it back is during the French Revolution, I learned recently, even though I studied at university, but that the actual catalyst for the revolution, when the regicide occurred, when they took down Louis, it was when the people were actually starving. They got to the point where they were actually starving, and they said, okay, something's got to go here. But they could push the population to that extent. We've been pushed a fair bit with the COVID lockdowns, with all sorts of other stuff, but comes a time, right, where
when you start loading your prisons with everybody that's just speaking up against it.
Yeah.
And that's it's funny because bringing the French Revolution is a great example, because what did they have? They had their Bastille Day, where essentially the political prisoners were released by storming the Bastille. And what do we have in Canada? We got Bill C-9, where they want to put you in jail for having an opinion. They're saying it's hate speech, but really they mean if you speak wrong speech that doesn't align with the government.
That's really agenda, what it means, correct,
and they will strip you of your connection to the world. And if you vocalize it, that this has happened to you, they can now put you in jail. So Canada is facing an economic catastrophe, and it's only going to get worse. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, this is good for all of us, when the Bank of Canada is talking about doing another interest rate cut, and they're going to do another. That's desperation, folks. Interest rate cuts is just going to increase inflationary costs. It just happens. You can't have interest rates drop down to next to nothing, or else everything goes into a massive bubble again and it blows up. But at some point, we're going to have to reap what we sow. And that's exactly where you borrow to the point where your currency gets so devalued that your $300 stake is now a $500 stake, becomes a $1,000 stake. Your money keeps collapsing in value. We are seeing a big war right now. Also on the economic side, the geopolitical side, is that there is countries that no longer want to support. And I think Trump's one of these. He's quietly, but he said a few things alluding to it, but the fiat currencies of the world are in trouble. And these globalists, the WEF, want to maintain it, but they want to control the central banking system. And it's tied heavily to the fiat currencies and how they perform. But their way of handling massive exposure to all of this liquidity of cash that essentially is getting devalued daily. That's why gold is soaring through the roof. That's why, people say, oh, it just went down. No, what you just saw was the fiat currency people manipulating the markets because they didn't like that gold was screaming up. Same with silver. They quickly dumped a bunch of stock in gold mining companies, silver mining companies, metal companies. They all went down. They're saying it's a correction. No, it's not a correction. It's desperation. As it's like GameStop on steroids that affects the entire world. I think Trump is part of the process. Is he's talked about cryptocurrencies, getting involved in that. But I think gold is going to be back with a vengeance. Asset-backed currencies the American dollar will get saved. It will be reconstituted. They have no choice. Reconstitute it from the Federal Reserve, get rid of the federal debt notes, convert them back into a U.S. constitutional dollar, which was backed by gold and silver. He'll just say gold's going to be worth $10,000, and then basically your fractional dollars will be tied to that gold reserve. Canada has $0. Canada's panicking. It has no gold in its reserves anymore. Sold it all off as of 2016. Not 1 cent of it left. So, it's going to be a wild time. Canadians, buckle up, because if you don't have, you should be stocking up on food where you can. You should be preparing for a rough ride. Food is going to skyrocket. We're going to see another bubble. The draining of the last of the boomer money that's transferring of wealth to them, it's going to get eaten up. Canada, these guys will eat their own. That's what I'm saying. These guys, the Laurentian elite, we call them in Canada, will eat their own before capitulating. And that means those of us on the bottom, the grassroots, will be the ones that will be on fire before
There
they
is a
give up.
sense. Yeah, there is a sense that the hammer of justice slowly, ever so slowly, is starting to turn around. If you're looking at an arm wrestling, and the left has had us, with the January 6th, all the rest of it, but bit by bit, and there's some big stories breaking out of the U.S. right now as regards to all this. I'm going to share a link with one right now. This is incredibly good news from our side of the aisle. And let me enlarge the image so that it can be seen by everybody, so that it doesn't look just like anything, and then make it that much bigger. All right, James Woods, we love James Woods. This will be one of SCOTUS's, Supreme Court, right? More landmark decisions right up there with voter ID. Breaking, the House Oversight Committee has declared all of Joe Biden's auto pen pardons and executive actions null and void. They've released a 100-page report calling on the DOJ to launch a full investigation into the legality of Biden's pardons and executive actions. And so the auto pen was being used on all this stuff. The committee deems void all executive actions signed by the auto pen without proper corresponding contemporaneous written approval traceable to the president's own consent. So the auto pen was used for pretty much everything. But what it wasn't used for was Hunter. Apparently, Biden did manage to scratch that one out. But the main takeaway from all this is that they're recommending that the Department of Justice start looking into it. Once the DOJ looks into it, there's other great news. Here's some more great news from the U.S. side of things. A grand jury is being convened in Florida. This takes it out of Maryland. It takes it out of, Vermont. It takes it out of New Hampshire. It takes it out of D.C. It takes it out of these blue Democrat strongholds and moves it into a red state. And these are some of the most egregious charges that have been laid out. So this is Crossfire Hurricane stuff. Trump is starting to talk very boldly that it points directly to Obama. He needs to be charged. Trump's expecting justice, says we have it all. There's no reason to delay. Charge him. And so we're talking about Obama. We're talking Hillary Clinton. We're talking about Eric Holder. We're talking about the whole thing. James Comey, Lisa, what is it? Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, the lovers, all this. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting.
Yeah. And I had heard that they were saying all but 2 executive orders by Biden. All but 2. Only 2 of them were authentic signatures. Everything. 2. They said they think they found 2 that are actually authentic signatures. The rest are all auto pen. It's that bad that every executive order through his entire 4 years, all but 2 were only 2 were authentic.
And I think there was, and here's the other thing that's happened, Blake, is I was hearing about old pencil neck Schiff, Adam Schiff. He has a former Democrat colleague has turned whistleblower on that guy. And he's turning evidence over to the Department of Justice. And so Schiff's in a lot of trouble. Adam Schiff is in a world of hurt right now, Blake. So he's another name that's going to be counting down. But the fact that it's shifting over, pardon the pun, shifting over to Florida spells a much more hopeful outcome of seeing justice than we would see, in liberal-controlled cesspools such as Washington, D.C. So very interesting as well. Here's the deal, Eric, about the people sacrificing Christ. Thank God Christ was sacrificed. Without his sacrifice, there'd be no redemption. That's why Jesus rebuked Peter when Peter said, "Oh Lord, don't let this ever happen to you." And Jesus rebuked him and said, "Who is it to you to stop the will of my Father? Don't hinder me in what I have to do, because I'm in Gethsemane, sweat and blood here about what I'm going to have to face coming ahead of me." And that's God manifest in flesh. So that's something to think about. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Let's see if we can get the president himself in on some of this, where he was talking about that. It's quite a remarkable thing that happened in the Oval Office. There was a press pool. They were asking questions, came out. So let's take a look on Obama. Let's see what we get. Because it was pretty telling, pretty dramatic. Okay, yeah, here we go. And I want to get the latest on this. This is for one of the. Okay. Wow. Okay. Okay, I don't have that right now. With a lot of it's on. As soon as I do that, I start seeing Japan because there's a lot happening there. Let's do some of this land claim bullshit in Canada. This is pretty easy to find. Canada anthem. We had an incident at the ball game last night, and I'll see if I can get a clip. Yeah, here we go. Okay, and once again, we'll get and share this thing. Canada, the national anthem. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, Fermi Levels goes. What I want to see how you kids are seeing this. Again, it's too small, so I got to play with it a bit just to
make
this
see it pretty good.
Worthwhile exercise. Okay, this idiot singing was so damned awful that I didn't realize until seeing some posts that he changed the anthem words to "our home on native land." The lyric goes, "our home and native land," but now it's "home on native land." He's Canadian, was invited to sing the anthem at last night's game. This is what he does. Canada's turned into a total loser country. Brian Gerson, the current state of Canada is a woke joke. Okay, I'll make this a little smaller so we can all see the boy. And get here and let's hear him do the anthem and see how he butchers it.
First to sing the Canadian national anthem, please welcome multi-platinum, Grammy-nominated Canadian singer-songwriter, J.P. Saxe.
Oh, Canada, our home on native land, true.
All right, so there you go. So he plays with the line and does the on native land. Blake, speak to this. This is, of course, typical. It's the ongoing. Yeah. It feeds into the ongoing narrative, right?
The progressive hellscape that is Canada. It really is. I mean, it's woke insanity. But I don't know this guy at all. Maybe he'll speak. I don't know. Has he said anything? Maybe he was just protesting it, mocking it. I mean, I don't know. It could be that it was his way of just kind of mocking the situation, because unless he's a progressive woke guy that's like going, you're on stolen land kind of comments that we hear all the time from the progressive left. And again, most of this is being pushed by far left progressive types in Canada to destabilize, or I call it balkanization of Canada. They want to break it all up. So again, we'll go back to the original conversation. So a handful of all can control it all. That's how you divide everybody. You conquer them that way, and then you take control. I've never seen anything like it, and how stupid Canadians really are. And I don't mean Canadians in general, because there's a lot of Canadians that are smart and they see what's going on and they're screaming like prophets out in the wilderness, but nobody's listening. Right? It's just like they're too busy focusing on their elbows up and worried, want to make sure they get their pension income. And that's the thing. And their healthcare, they can't even get access to these days. Like, people are struggling to get by. And as you said, it's going to get worse. But this guy, I mean, it's just, if that's what it was and he believed in what he was saying, well, that shows the condition of Canada today. Ryan's correct. That's how bad Canada has fallen. You tried to do that 10 years ago, that guy would have been crucified. But within the last 10 years, they've gotten rid of icons of Canada like Don Cherry for speaking up for Canadians who fought and died through Remembrance Day, which is to honor those that fought to maintain Canada to be a free country and gave their ultimate sacrifices or lost their limbs or couldn't breathe anymore from breathing in mustard gas. Those are heroes. And he only said that newcomers don't seem to care about it. And a lot of Canadians in general have forgotten about that important sacrifice. And what happened? He offended somebody because he said, "you people," and was taken, and the CBC types turfed, or no, he was with Rogers at that time. Sportsnet tossed him off as quick as possible and threw him to the ash heap of his history. But he just got an award, thank God. He just got an award. Don Cherry was just honored as a distinguished Canadian. Wow. I can't remember the group that gave it to him, but at least it was something to show that guy still stands for what he believed at that time was a Canada-US were a united front against the oppression of the world.
I think poor Eric the Great out here is having a kind of a schizophrenic breakdown, but hopefully Sue's giving him a timeout so he can think about it. But just have a little nap, Eric. Thanks for showing up, though. We do appreciate it. Okay, here's some, we're hearing a lot about these land claims, Blake, and the whole thing about, the residential schools, what a horror they are.
Yeah.
I was just doing some genealogy, as I am wont to do, and I came across this. It was so interesting and so counter to the current narrative that I thought I would post it on the X platform and tag a couple of named people that are bringing our kind of spin to this counter spin, if you will, to the residential school narrative. But check this out. Okay, so we got this. Yeah. Here's what I did. Let me see if it's big enough for you to read. Yeah, I think you can almost make it out. Okay, I'll read it for you now. Some of you are already ahead of me. Interesting genealogical find from the obit of a distant cousin named Mary Ann Bella Lavallee, née Pelletier. Her dates are 1920 to 1999. I ask, what changed? RE residential schools. Cowessess First Nation, Francis Widows, Jim McMurdy, two leading voices against this. This is from Regina's The Leader Post, dated November 24th, 99. In her obituary, it writes, as a result of those early years, Bella was a strong believer in the positive role the residential schools had in her own life, as well as that of her generation. She was also one of the first Saskatchewan Indian people to achieve a high school diploma and a post-high school education. This lady, Bella Lavallee, née Pelletier, but her married name was, she did her work kind of under her married name. She ended up representing Canada in Australia. She became a leading figure in human rights for Native First Nations people, stressing the importance of education. And she looks, her family records, she looked very favorably upon her residential school experience. And not only did she look favorably upon it, but she actually became one of the First Nations consultants to it. I should add that her husband was a former Canadian chief of Cowessess First Nation, and that her son and or grandson were also chiefs of Cowessess Saskatchewan First Nation. So very interesting. I'm pretty sure he's Jesus the Nazarene, not Jesus the narcissist. Thank you, Sue and Rachel. And of course, Kimba, you're absolutely right about that. Jesus of Nazareth. One of my beloved scriptures is with Nathaniel. He's sitting by, and the disciples, I think it's Andrew and James, go, hey, the Messiah has come. The Messiah has come. It's Jesus of Nazareth is here. And Nathaniel, I picture him whittling some witter going, oh, yeah. Can any good thing come from Nazareth? And then Jesus overhears this and goes, he goes, truly a Hebrew in whom there is no guile. In other words, this guy's just calling it the way he is. He's actually wrong. Nathaniel's wrong. Something good did come from Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth. Praise God. Despite Jesus himself saying there's none good but one, but that's a different story.
Yeah, he was
Anyway.
probably, Nathaniel was like, okay, which Messiah is this one? This is the third one this week. that's
Third
come
one we've
by.
had this week. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we are living in absolutely hyperbolic times. It's just amazing. The full court press. We've got two worldviews contesting for power of the globe. One is Trump's nationalism, and we just had great news out of Argentina. Milei, I always pronounce his name wrong. I'm not a Spanish speaker. Milei. He won even bigger than he won last time. So he's got even more control, more influence in Argentina. He left kind remarks when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He's all in on Trump. And now we've had another victory with Japan. Trump's working deals with Argentina. He's working deals with Japan. And he stopped another war while he was over there. Cambodia, apparently, and Thailand had border skirmishes over the last number of years. And so a peace treaty was signed there, as well as Trump working precious mineral deals with those countries as well. Meanwhile, all we get in Canada, Blake, is a whole bunch of talk. So on one hand, we're seeing a lot of justice pressing. We're seeing Comey. We're seeing Trump calling out Obama. We're seeing the auto pen is coming. That's the whole January 6th committee. They're all excused through auto pen. If that gets overturned at the Supreme Court, God help those people, because they're going to be tried, and justice is going to come for Liz Cheney and her corrupt, villainous January 6th committee. We're already learning more and more about January 6th. More footage on the mysterious pipe bomber was released. I mean, it's just being drip, leak, bit by bit. And it's just like a very slow arm wrestle, and you're starting to see the pendulum turn. And Trump just seems to be winning on every front. He seems to be winning.
In the 2020 election too, right? He's tweeting about that on Truth Social.
Starting to come out too, Blake. You're absolutely right about that. I think that, the one thing leads to the other, right? It's like the fives, it's like we're looking at dominoes all lined up, and as one story goes, the entire narrative is being rewritten. And at the same time, we're getting a challenge to Wikipedia. So again, that narrative control in the marketplace, in the infosphere of the public market. Now Wikipedia, who stood alone at the top of the mountain dictating and asking for your money every time you logged in, by the way, has now got an infant competitor in the form of Grokpedia, who gets stronger and stronger with each passing day. Grokpedia is going to be a monster. It's going to tear the corrupt heart out of Wikipedia. I've already set my browser. My search engine is Grok now. I do, hey, Grok, what about this? I search, I go to Grok first. So Google's being devalued for me, and I encourage every patriot to get off of Google, shut down Wikipedia, get out of there, and start supporting these alternative platforms, because you're going to see, again, this is all part of the press, the information that's coming out. They can't suppress it. It's a beautiful thing to see. It is the democratization of information. That's what we're witnessing. Power to the people, right on. Porch Pineapple, Grok sucks. That's because you're a leftist son of a bitch. I know that the Wikipedia, one example they gave is Wikipedia calls January 6th a coup to take over the government. Incorrect. And Grok rightly corrects it. It says, yes, there was a riot. Yes, there was a illegal entering of the Capitol building. All that's true. It holds the narrative. But where it differs significantly on that point, there was no insurrection. The FBI said there was no insurrection, but the January 6th, Porch Pineapple, a lot of pain is coming up to you. The next few years, remember, we're still in the first year of Trump's, term. So this 4-year term, We're only in the first year. We're not even through the first year yet. It's been glorious. He's taken a wrecking ball to the world system. And where we are in Canada, I am extremely interested in seeing how we're going to play what. And this meeting with Xi is going to be very telling, because something's going to come out of that. And we're going to learn very quickly, I think, if Canada has a deal, if those EV with zero tariffs on China are going to come into Canada. Can Canada offer a carrot big enough to tempt China against to fight the U.S.? That's the question. Do they have a carrot big enough to play that game, Blake?
No. I mean, we're a small fry in a big world at this point, and we will not be able to withstand any force. If the U.S. decides to say, you know what, that's it, boom, you're totally cut off permanently, Canada would fall overnight. And there's no way Canada would be allowed to make deals with corrupt countries like China independently, loading up the U.S. border with fentanyl, with devices managed by China, spy equipment, everything would be in Canada. Matter of fact, Canada, it wouldn't happen. Let's just say it's not going to happen. But yeah, great news up ahead. I would argue, though, there should be a correction about the insurrection. The insurrection happened in 2016 after Trump got elected. They began everything from the Russia collusion hoax, and that's where you saw a coup, an attempted coup to supersede a duly elected president, and those people are now being exposed. And I think that's that 8 years, 4 years of first experience, 4 years with Biden, and you've got enough information now, and it's coming out, as you said, drip, 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 drip.
Yeah.
But I think Canada, you need to smarten your asses up. Alberta is waking up. Did you see that rally they had over the weekend? Yeah. Thousands showed up in front of the legislature for a free Alberta. Danielle Smith may be the only leader left in Canada. She has declared she's not going to allow Ottawa to pass any legislation that affects their trade, foreign trade to the U.S. or anywhere, that they're going to override. But there's some beautiful video coverage of thousands of people in front of the legislature for a free Alberta. That's the answer. That's what's going to happen, Canada. If you want to become you still want to be a sovereign country and want to play fair ball with the Americans, you have to agree and go back to your roots of being a country that believes in individual rights, individual freedoms, private property, making us all equal, no longer a class system by Indigenous or non-Indigenous or all the woke, progressive, Marxist ideological crap that we've been inundated with for the last 10, 15 years. That's got to end. It's got to end. Marxism has to end in Canada, and you can't allow the Maoists from China to keep infecting us. But that's the direction. I think you follow Alberta's lead. They're doing the right thing. And you got to say, if Canada's going to work, then we got to be the right kind of country. What we grew up thinking we had, that changed so dramatically, for the last 10 years and arguably maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Really.
Let's look at that Alberta situation. We got breaking news. This came out a while back now. I want to get the latest on this and I'll let you make some sense about it, Blake. I think this is the one I want. 456,000 Albertans 2 hours ago. 456,000 Albertans have signed a petition calling for a referendum asking, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? A 15.7% of eligible voters, more than enough to trigger a referendum. Looks like we will be having one. Hashtag Forever Canadian. So news alert, Forever Canadian petition surpasses goal, collects 456,000 signatures. So now, I don't know exactly. I'm a little confused about some of the terminology on it. There's the petition. Is the petition the idea we don't want to have any movement away from Canada? We're petitioning to stay in Canada, or is the idea, hey, let's have a referendum. We want the hell out of here, says Alberta.
Well, I think Alberta has to go. The initial petition gets it to the next stage, which would be an official vote.
Yeah.
If there was a vote on separation, Canadian law has to be was written because of Quebec, that the question has to be clear, right? You can't put vague, and the Quebec separatists were really good at putting vague, double meaning questions to confuse people. So basically the question would have to be is, do you want Alberta to be a separate country? Boom. Or do you want to leave Canada? Yes or no. It has to be
very simple
clear.
and don't bugger with it. Yeah.
No double meanings.
No legalese.
So it's a yes or no. It's a very simple, a yes or a no. And so they got to have enough signatures to get the petition, because Danielle Smith said she opened the doorway to this.
Yeah.
And America, this, if there's ever Trump had a Trump card over Canada and over Carney right now, is Alberta. Because Alberta could be the one that drags all of Canada kicking and screaming into an economic union with the United States. Because they'll just say, if we're gone, you're done. Because apparently the percentage of oil production in Canada, what it adds to the Canadian GDP is massive. The country survives off Alberta. If Alberta was to leave with all of its oil, Canada would be in a bad place. That wealth distribution.
And we're already in a bad place, but we'd be even worse off than we already are.
But yeah, you'll see Alberta is going to make changes in 2026. If Carney can't get a good deal done with Trump and gets that done, and there's not a better unification deal between provinces in Canada, Canada's finished. Alberta leaves. Alberta joins the U.S. as the 51st state. British Columbia would have no choice but to follow suit, because it may be a blue state, but you know what? It would fall because it has no access to the rest of Canada. It would have to go through Alberta, which would become a state. And I don't think Alberta is going to play nice with BC and David Eby and say, we're going to allow you to trade across. You didn't want to build a pipeline to the coast for us? Guess what? You're cut off to the rest of you'll have to find another way.
It's going to be interesting, Blake. It's really going to be interesting, because we've got a lot of players in motion. Eby is going to do his attack ad. That's going to be interesting. The president's reaction to that. The electric vehicle deal with China and Canada. We'll see what happens with that. If Trump's going to allow that to go. Remember, the president is meeting with the president of China, Chairman Xi. He's a good friend of mine. So we're going to find out exactly what's going to come out of there. As Blake messaged, or it wasn't even a message, he posted on the X platform, a very telling post Blake left. We're going to leave the show with this one today. Blake says, Trump is going to talk to Z. Said, if Carney plays, if you do play with Carney, I'm going to bust you. I am going to tear you to hell and back. So you're called China, and you think I'm bluffing? We'll see. All right, Blake, thank you so much, as always, for being here and lending your insight to things. And people watching, thank you so much, everybody, including Eric the Great, who had seemingly some sort of psychotic break during the program. But these things happen. Kimbo, we love you. Porch Pineapple, you character. And everybody else, thanks for your support. Give us a thumbs up, share the video, give us a like, leave a comment. You know the drill. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.